The 1920s were a time of great change and excitement in America. It was an era marked by rapid advancements and a sense of newfound freedom. The streets were alive with the hum of Model T cars, and the fashion of the day reflected a break from tradition, with flapper dresses symbolizing the bold spirit of the times. New technologies like cars, radios, and telephones were changing how people lived. These innovations brought the world closer together, making communication and travel easier than ever before. Families gathered around radios to listen to news and entertainment, while telephones connected people across great distances, revolutionizing social interactions. The economy was booming. Many people felt like they were living the good life. Lavish parties and luxurious homes became symbols of success and prosperity. The wealthy indulged in the finest things life had to offer, from extravagant fashion to opulent gatherings, creating a culture of excess and celebration. Jazz music filled the air. Cities were growing at a rapid pace. The vibrant sounds of jazz became the soundtrack of the era, reflecting the dynamic and energetic spirit of the time. Urban areas expanded, drawing people from rural regions in search of new opportunities and a taste of the modern lifestyle. The stock market was soaring. People were investing their money, hoping to get rich quick. The allure of quick wealth led many to speculate wildly, buying stocks on margin and fueling a financial bubble. The stock exchange floors buzzed with activity, as fortunes were made and lost in the blink of an eye. There was a sense of optimism and progress in the air. It felt like the good times would never end. The belief in endless prosperity was pervasive, with many convinced that the economic boom would continue indefinitely. This optimism was reflected in the culture, art, and literature of the time, which celebrated progress and innovation. However, beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. This period of prosperity was not shared equally by all. While some enjoyed unprecedented wealth, others faced significant challenges. Economic disparities became more pronounced, with many struggling to make ends meet, despite the overall appearance of affluence. Farmers struggled with low crop prices. Agricultural communities faced hardships as the prices of crops plummeted, leading to financial distress for many farmers. The rural economy lagged behind the urban boom, creating a stark contrast between the fortunes of city dwellers and those in the countryside. Many African Americans faced discrimination and limited opportunities. Despite the cultural renaissance in places like Harlem, systemic racism and segregation limited the economic and social mobility of African Americans. The promise of the American dream remained out of reach for many, highlighting the deep-seated inequalities of the era. The gap between the rich and the poor was widening. The stark contrast between the opulent lifestyles of the wealthy and the struggles of the poor became increasingly evident. This growing divide foreshadowed the economic instability that would soon grip the nation. The Roaring Twenties were a time of great innovation and cultural change, but they were also a time of growing inequality and economic instability. The era's advancements in technology, art, and culture were juxtaposed with the harsh realities of economic disparity and social unrest, setting the stage for the challenges that lay ahead. The seeds of the Great Depression were sown during this era of excess and speculation. The unchecked optimism and speculative investments of the 1920s created a fragile economic foundation. As the decade drew to a close, the cracks in this foundation began to show, leading to one of the most devastating economic downturns in history. The stock market was the symbol of the Roaring Twenties prosperity. It seemed like an easy way to make money. People borrowed money to buy stocks, hoping to get rich quickly. This practice, known as buying on margin, was incredibly risky. Stock prices kept rising, but they were based on speculation, not real value. Companies were producing more goods than people could buy. Warning signs were ignored. People were caught up in the frenzy of the market.
Then, in October 1929, the bubble burst. The stock market crashed. Prices plummeted. Panic selling gripped the nation. Millions of investors lost their life savings in a matter of days.
The crash of 1929 marked the end of the Roaring Twenties and the beginning of a long and painful economic downturn. The Great Depression had begun. It would test the spirit of the American people like never before. The stock market crash sent shockwaves throughout the American economy. Banks, having invested heavily in the market, lost everything and were forced to close their doors. Millions of depositors lost their savings. Businesses, facing a sudden drop in consumer spending, were forced to shut down. Factories stood idle. Unemployment soared to unprecedented levels. Lines for bread and soup kitchens grew longer with each passing day.
The American dream seemed to vanish overnight. Families were torn apart as men traveled far and wide in search of work. Homes were foreclosed upon. Farmers, already struggling, saw their crops wither and die in the fields.
The initial response to the crisis was slow and inadequate. The government, following a hands-off approach to the economy, was ill-prepared to deal with the magnitude of the disaster. The nation was on the brink of collapse. The Great Depression was more than just an economic crisis. It was a human tragedy that touched every aspect of American life.
The Dust Bowl, a devastating ecological disaster, ravaged the Great Plains, forcing thousands of farmers to flee their land and head west in search of work.
The decline in consumer spending and investment created a vicious cycle. Businesses couldn't sell their goods, so they couldn't hire workers. Unemployed workers had no money to spend, further depressing demand. The economy spiraled downward.
International trade ground to a halt, as other countries were gripped by the global depression. Protectionist policies like high tariffs only worsened the situation. The world was interconnected, and the crisis spread like wildfire.
The Great Depression was a time of great hardship and uncertainty. It challenged the very fabric of American society and forced people to confront their deepest fears and insecurities. But it also revealed the resilience of the human spirit and the power of collective action. The Great Depression took a heavy toll on the American psyche. Unemployment reached a staggering 25%. Men who had once been the breadwinners of their families were reduced to standing in breadlines, their heads hung in shame.
Families were torn apart as people went in search of work. Children dropped out of school to help support their families. Malnutrition and illness were widespread, especially in the poorest communities.
The American dream, once a beacon of hope, seemed like a distant memory. The sense of optimism and progress that had characterized the Roaring Twenties was replaced by a pervasive sense of despair and uncertainty.
Yet, even in the darkest of times, the human spirit endured. People helped each other. Communities came together to support those in need. The arts provided a much-needed escape from the harsh realities of daily life.
In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office as President of the United States. The country was in the grip of the Great Depression, with unemployment rates soaring and banks failing. The American people were looking for a leader who could steer them out of this economic abyss. His message of hope and his promise of a new deal for the American people resonated deeply with a nation desperate for change. Roosevelt's confident demeanor and his ability to communicate directly with the public through his fireside chats helped to restore faith in the government.
FDR's New Deal was a series of programs and reforms designed to provide relief, recovery, and reform. These initiatives aimed to address the immediate needs of the unemployed and the poor, stimulate economic recovery, and implement financial reforms to prevent future depressions. He created jobs through programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration. These programs not only provided employment, but also improved the nation's infrastructure, building roads, schools, and parks that would benefit future generations.
Social Security was established to provide a safety net for the elderly, the unemployed, and the disabled. This landmark legislation ensured that vulnerable populations would have some financial security, reducing poverty and providing a sense of dignity. New regulations were put in place to prevent future economic crises. The establishment of the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation helped to stabilize the financial system and restore public confidence in banks and the stock market.
The New Deal did not end the Great Depression overnight, but it did provide hope and a sense of purpose to millions of Americans. It showed that the government could take an active role in addressing economic and social issues, offering a lifeline to those in need. It fundamentally changed the role of government in American life. The New Deal expanded the federal government's responsibilities, setting a precedent for future government intervention in the economy and social welfare.
The New Deal was not without its critics. Some argued that it went too far in expanding government power, fearing it would lead to socialism. Others argued that it didn't go far enough to address the root causes of economic inequality and poverty. But it remains a testament to the power of government to address social and economic problems. The New Deal's legacy is a reminder of the potential for transformative change when leaders are willing to take bold action in the face of adversity. The Great Depression was a defining moment in American history. It tested the nation's resolve and shaped the social, economic, and political landscape for generations to come. The impact of this period was felt in every corner of the country, from bustling cities to rural farmlands. Families were torn apart, businesses shuttered, and the very fabric of society was stretched to its limits. It also taught us valuable lessons about the importance of economic stability, social responsibility, and government intervention. Communities came together in ways they never had before, relying on each other for support and survival. The sense of unity and shared purpose was a beacon of hope in otherwise dark times. The Great Depression showed us the dangers of unchecked speculation and the importance of regulating financial markets. The stock market crash of 1929 was a stark reminder of how quickly fortunes can change and how interconnected our financial systems are. It underscored the need for robust oversight and prudent economic policies to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again. It highlighted the need for a social safety net to protect the most vulnerable members of society. Programs like the New Deal were introduced to provide relief, recovery, and reform. These initiatives laid the groundwork for modern social welfare programs, emphasizing the role of government in safeguarding the well-being of its citizens. Most importantly, the Great Depression taught us that we are all in this together. When one part of society suffers, we all suffer. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to succeed. This era fostered a sense of empathy and solidarity that transcended social and economic divides, reminding us of our shared humanity. The lessons of the Great Depression are as relevant today as they were nearly a century ago. As we face new economic challenges, we must remember the importance of shared prosperity, social justice, and government action. The echoes of that time resonate in our current struggles, urging us to learn from the past and apply those lessons to build a more resilient and equitable future. We must never forget the human cost of economic hardship and always strive to create a more just and equitable society for all. The stories of those who lived through the Great Depression serve as a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring importance of compassion and community in the face of adversity.